Welcome to part 2 of chemical nomenclature. We've already talked about ionic compounds, and so today's lesson is about covalent compounds. You'll remember that covalent compounds are compounds that are made up of two nonmetals, okay? Sometimes they can have 3 or 4 nonmetals, but we're going to keep it simple today and just talk about compounds that have 2. So I want you to think about the compound CO2 and CO. If you know how to name these two compounds, you essentially already know the rules for covalent compounds. CO2 is, of course, carbon dioxide, and you know that O2 is called dioxide because that means you have 2 oxygens, okay? CO is called carbon monoxide, so monoxide means that you only have 1 oxygen. And it's worth noting that we didn't call this monocarbon monoxide, we just call it carbon. So that's a rule to remember, that you don't use the prefix mono on the first one, okay? So essentially here's the rule. You use a prefix from this list of prefixes to indicate however many of each atom you have in your compound. And the prefix mono is usually omitted on the very first element of the compound, but we do include mono on the second element if needed, okay? So again, it's not mono carbon dioxide, it's just carbon dioxide, but on CO you do include the mono on the second one and call it carbon monoxide. So if you are given the name of a covalent compound and you need to name it, you essentially follow these steps here. So step 1, you first make sure the compound is covalent by making sure that it's made up of 2 nonmetals. So dinitrogen monoxide is nitrogen and oxygen, which is both nonmetals. They're both on the right side of the zigzag line or the stair-step line on the periodic table. So we have 2 nonmetals, so that's a check mark. Next, we use the prefixes from above to translate into the chemical name. Dinitrogen means 2 nitrogens into monoxide means 1 oxygen. So there we go. And that's it, okay? That is your chemical formula, N2O. And again, rule number 3, or step 3 here, the prefix mono is not used on the first element, so nitrogen dioxide is NO2. It really is that simple, so we're going to do a couple practice problems here together, and then I'll show you a couple more on my warp speed. So dinitrogen monoxide we just did was N2O. Sulfur trioxide, we literally just translate it. Sulfur is S. And it didn't have a prefix, so there's just 1. Trioxide means 3 oxygens, so we do O3. Now I want to make a little note about SO3 here. Every year I have students who see that and call it sulfite, and that's not the same thing. This is not the sulfite ion, okay? This right here is sulfur trioxide. That's a neutral compound. There's no charge on it. This over here is sulfite, because it has the charge on it. It's an ion, okay? So please note that the charge totally changes how you name it. If it has a charge, it gets the ion name. If it doesn't have a charge, it's just a neutral compound. All right, example 3 here, Tetra, Phosphorus, Deca, Sulfide. So again, just translate it. Don't do anything weird. Don't do any crisscrossing. Don't do any reducing. Just translate it. So Tetra, Phosphorus means P4. Deca, Sulfide. Deca is like a decade, so it's 10, so S10. That's it. You leave it alone. Again, do not reduce it. Don't crisscross anything. Don't do anything weird. Just translate it and move on. The other way is you might be given the formula and need to write the name. This should say write the name, okay? If you need to write the name, again, you just use those prefixes to indicate the number of atom. You remember that you do not include mono on the first element, and the second element gets that "ide" ending. So again, remember that you already know some examples. You know, carbon monoxide. You don't call it, carbon monooxygen. You change the second one to an "ide" ending. So just make it sound normal. That's the rule, okay? So NF3, 1 nitrogen is just nitrogen, and then we have 3 fluoride, so the prefix for 3 is tri, so it's trifluoride. Trifluoride. Make sure you spell fluoride right. It's UO, not OU. Okay, so that one's all done. We don't do anything weird to it. Next is phosphorus for P. Phosphorus. And then we have 5-chlorine. So 5, just like in geometry, is penta, so it's pentachloride. No translating, or sorry, no crisscrossing, nothing weird going on, just translate it. And finally, into O3. 2 nitrogens will be dinitrogen. And the second one is O3, that's trioxide. And that's it, trioxide. I do want to mention that sometimes you get a word that looks kind of strange, like let's say you had 5 oxygens. I don't care what the first element is, just something, but you have 5 oxygens. That would be like pentaoxide. If you write that, that's totally fine because you're following the rules. But a lot of times if you get that AO, you can leave off the A and you can just write pentoxide. Just is a little bit easier to pronounce. So if you get that AO, you can get rid of the A and just make it an O, and that's fine. But again, either way, I don't think a teacher would count it wrong either way, because it's kind of hard to know what to do in that case, and they basically mean the same thing. I think what your teachers are going to care about is that you get the prefix right and that you change the ending to "ide." Alright, so we're going to do a couple more examples. We are going to speed through them at my warp speed. So if you need to pause or stop it every now and then to take notes, go for it. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment or ask your teacher. Alright, let's check out some examples.